Najee Harris has been pretty high on the list of conversation this offseason. I feel like we've talked about him a bunch. People asked all season long if the Steelers were going to re-sign him, what they'd re-sign him for, what his contract would look like, if the Steelers had any shot of bringing back Najee Harris. And we still get those questions today, many of which I have answered the same way. But a lot of times that conversation is, you got to wait and see. You have to see what his value is going to be. You have to see what his market's going to be. The Pittsburgh Steelers would probably bring him back on a cheap deal if that presents itself. But is it going to present itself? I still don't think we know. But his market value has come out. According to Spotrac, whatever you want to call it. I call it something different, I feel. Najee Harris's market value this offseason is $27 million over 3 years with a $9.2 million average, which would make him the sixth highest paid running back in the NFL. $9.2 million is higher than his fifth-year option that the Pittsburgh Steelers chose to decline. They are looking for a running back situation, but Art Rooney said that there's an opening for a job there, and he's not going to turn away anybody who could fill that opening to the best of their abilities. Najee Harris isn't a guy that comes in here and stinks by no means. He's going to get you 1,000 yards. He's going to keep things going. He's going to have some big runs. That's who Najee Harris is. $9.2 million a year, $27 million over 3 seasons, sixth highest paid running back in the NFL. I'll say this. I kind of see Najee Harris getting this deal. I think it's very possible that a team like the Dallas Cowboys, a team like the San Francisco 49ers, who could use a very reliable backup running back for when Christian McCaffrey goes down. Najee Harris is as reliable as they come. This man literally snaps in half sometimes during games, gets up, things are okay. You don't eat some banana pudding on Thanksgiving, the guy's totally fine. Could see a team like the San Francisco 49ers, could see a team like the Las Vegas Raiders, could see a team like the New York Giants. All of these teams that need running back help, that are looking for a guy that they're not going to break the bank with, but they're willing to take some sort of shot on because the upside is there and the contract isn't terrible. Plus, they get a reliable runner. I think a lot of teams would look at the Pittsburgh Steelers over the last 4 years and say Najee Harris has gotten 1,000 yards 4 times behind 4 pretty awful offensive lines. They'd be accurate. They'll think, yeah, we could get him it. As for the Pittsburgh Steelers, if that contract is offered, they will not go higher than that contract. I find that very hard to believe. And to be honest, I don't expect them to offer this contract. I expect them to first let Najee go into free agency, see what his market looks like. He will not be somebody that the Steelers talk to early in the process. It will more so be later in the process. Hey, this is your value, because Najee Harris is a businessman. At the end of this, Najee Harris understands that he needs to make some money. He has shown his, I don't want to say expertise, but shown his business side of this when he's gone on those rants about devaluing the running back market. He's not going to take a low-end hometown deal if he doesn't have to. He'll go into free agency, at least this is what I expect, and test the market, see if he could get something bigger. Chances are he could get this contract, or at least something close to this contract. The Steelers will wait until that number is 6, 7, and try to get a deal done there if that's possible. If that's not possible, the Steelers will most likely say, we are okay. We're heading into the NFL draft. There are names upon names that we will pay little to no money for the next 4 years. See what happens, run them into the ground, hope that they turn out to be a star. But if they don't, hey, we'll just find another one in 4 years. It's okay, because that's the running back market right now, and we can take advantage of it. Meanwhile, Jaylen Warren is as cheap as they come in the NFL, and we will be okay re-signing him and bringing him back as a number 1/a number 2, and then we'll go find somebody else either through the NFL draft or through free agency, where we could say this is the new Cordarrelle Patterson, because I expect them to replace Cordarrelle Patterson. That's our running back market. That's our running back room. I don't look at Najee Harris as a guy that will get much higher than $9.2 million a year, but I think $9.2 million a year is a pretty good place for Najee Harris. And I think right now there are a lot of teams that need a running back. The running back market is on its way up. I don't want to say it's going to climb any higher unless you're Saquon Barkley, unless you're Josh Jacobs, unless you're one of those guys. You're not going to get a massive deal, but you're going to get a decent deal. There is value in running backs. Once again, I expect Najee Harris to get that 9.2 or somewhere close to that 9.2. I don't expect it to be with the Pittsburgh Steelers. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I completely agree. You look at this current decision-making group for the Steelers, Omar Khan and specifically Andy Weidel. Where does Weidel come from? He comes from Philly. How did they build? They built the offensive line, and then when they were ready, eventually they went out and they got the stud running back to run behind that offensive line. These guys inherited Najee Harris, which is not a bad thing to inherit, but the Steelers did it in the opposite way, and we all saw how that worked out. I mean, Najee Harris was a perfectly fine running back for the last 4 years. As you mentioned, over 1,000 yards. But you should be building for your running game from the front to the back. Now, we all agree that their offensive line on paper is better than what they were this year. So if they get better, maybe, just maybe, you go out and you bring in the guy at running back in a year, maybe in 2 years. But that's not this offseason. You're not paying a lot of money for a running back when you still have to figure out whether or not this offensive line is ready for showtime. So I think that it doesn't make sense that they'd bring him back, and I think all signs have pointed to that, especially, I mean, you don't pick up his fifth-year option. I know everybody said, oh, maybe they just want to see what he looks like in Arthur Smith's offense. But did he show you enough to where you're willing to pay this guy $9+ million a year? Did he show you enough that you're willing to make this guy the sixth highest paid running back in the NFL on your team when you still have questions on the offensive line, when you still have questions all over that offensive side of the football? No, I think that the $9.2 million a year makes a lot of sense for him. That puts him right between James Conner and David Montgomery when it comes to average contract value per year. So I think it fits well. I just don't think it fits well with the Steelers. I completely agree.
Yeah, there's too many questions. There's not enough cap space. There's too many other positions to sign. I mean, you look at it and say, Najee Harris, here's $9.2 million. We still have to go figure out our quarterback situation. We have to go sign a wide receiver. We're going to need some defensive linemen. Even if they do everything they can to create cap space, the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking at a situation where it's still, $80 million that they come up with. You're going to waste 10 of those on Najee Harris. The formula doesn't add up. It's almost like an easy answer in a situation where Najee's the best thing available. The running back market is the quarterback market. Then yeah, I could see that happening, but it's a situation where there are so many good running backs in the NFL draft. The Steelers had to have known that coming into this. You're not going to pay, even if Najee's market value was $6 million. I still think unless the Steelers could get him for very cheap, there is just no chance that they would even consider it. And I honestly think that if Najee was worth $5 million this offseason because the market value was so bad, they'd take him over Jaylen Warren and they'd bring him back and then they'd go get somebody else. But because Jaylen's going to be $2 million a year, I mean, there's just no point in bringing a guy like Najee Harris back. They're not for the money that he's probably going to make, and I do expect him to go out and make that money.